All right, we've got up and coming, emerging Halifax musician Joe Hubley joining me at this time. Joe, man, the album just dropped. Your first album, Spirits and Ghosts. What is it like to have that finally out into the public?
Keep emphasizing the finally. This has been something that I've been really, even the dreaming surpasses all the work I put into it, but the work alone has been quite a bit of time, quite a bit of thought put into it. It's been a 24-hour job. I feel like a parent. And now I'm just watching my kid go out in the world. And it's a funny thing having, like, I guess, a snapshot of entirety of all your ideas and all your concepts that you stored up in your brain. Having it as a tangible product is a really funny thing, but it feels amazing. It feels great every single day. Sometimes I wake up, I just look in the mirror and I'm like, I'm him. I'm really that guy. You know what I mean? And being able to show everyone else that what I have to offer to the world, just in this artistic point of view, it's been such a crazy feeling, and I'm so proud.
Not 19 and having your first album out here. What are some of the things I guess you learned in the process of creating your first album?
It's a hard, it's such a funny like process, I suppose. It's nothing about what you're expecting. You go in there and you have some rough ideas. Me personally, I started with a couple demos and I went to Youthful Music. Emiliano Bowden Gill, Braden Cameramans, and Colleen Shaw, they run the studio. And I reached out to them. I was really looking to put these ideas into fruition, and I didn't really think too much about it down the road. And then we did one single, and one just kind of led to another. We did the second one, myself and Archive, my producer. We did the second one, which ended up being the title track of this EP, Spirits and Ghosts. And after that, I kind of knew that we were sitting on a couple dollar signs, and I was really happy with how the product was coming out. And so, I mean, being this young in the game, sometimes there's a bit of competition, especially I've been establishing myself in this market only for a short while. So breaking in can sometimes be a bit of a difficult process. But I mean, since the release and even since we've been booking a couple shows and since I've been just kind of establishing my name in the region around me, people have been so accepting and so helpful. And it's been a really, really easy process to get in and really share my music with everybody. So making the album, I feel like, it came out as who I am now. And that's why I'm so proud of it, because I really feel like I've never been reaching for anything that's like on this EP. And the whole promotion process that comes after it, I mean, that's been a walk in the park, because people are just so welcoming and so happy to help me out and do what they can to pay it forward and share it along. And so it's just been really, really cool. And I feel like, you know, being this young, I'm not trying to go to university anytime soon, so I'm hoping this will work.
For people unfamiliar with the sound, and I know Virgin Radio has given it a lot of plays. It's all over Spotify. How would you describe your sound to those if you were to describe your music?
Just having a good time, being at a party. You know what I mean? It's. I'm always looking to just kind of keep it light and have fun, and I think that the four songs on this project really do show a little snapshot of that. I think they're very accessible, which is something I was really, really trying to hammer home. I don't want this to be for an exclusive group of people. I really want this to be a universal thing. That's how I've always thought of music. It's always how I've grown up thinking about social gatherings and stuff like that. They've always kind of been a vehicle for just sharing music and talking about it and feeling the soul. And so I'm hoping people can just get along to it, and again, have it be accessible. It's pop music, I suppose, if you really want to genre it down. I think there's a lot of influence of like funk and soul and R&B and things that have inspired me since I was a kid, like Motown record sounds and old disco tracks and stuff like that. I'm hoping you can kind of get a little flavor, a little spice of those sorts of things. But I think above all else, it's just good music, and I think it's something that you can show your grandma, or you can show some kid next door, and I'm hoping that everyone's gonna vibe out to it.
I, I love that you're bringing in Motown, you're bringing in disco, and you're bringing in funk. Like when you go to a collection of records, CDs, when you got your Spotify playlist, who are you putting on, and what are you listening to, and really what's been inspiring you?
A lot of Bill Withers, he's like my number one guy. Stevie Wonder, Come on, The Temptations, stop it. Earth, Wind, and Fire has been a big one lately for me. But also, I try and keep current. I try and keep relevant. I'm trying to, keep intact with what the kids are bumping these days. And that's a lot of hip hop too. That's a lot of like new jazz tracks. But a lot of like new R&B and stuff too. Like you can't ignore just what's on the pop radio because I want to listen to what people are doing nowadays too. Not really to copy or reinvent, but more just to kind of expand on ideas. And I suppose it's not like, oh, they use these three chords. I'm just going to do it and tweak it a little bit. Like I'm hoping to kind of see like what people are talking about, what people are finding interesting at the moment, and then okay, well, how can Joe Hubley put his little sauce on that? And I think that's kind of a good place to stay relevant, but also because all of my influences are a little dated, see what my predecessors were doing and try and find an amalgamation between the two. But I think I will go back to Bill Withers was kind of like I found him and I was like, okay, this music thing is this is a real deal. He's the man.
Wait, you pull up Bill Withers. Okay, so let's talk. So, is it? Do you go Use Me, Bill Withers, or do you go to Lovely Day, Bill Withers? Because both those tracks are fantastic. And the Lovely Day,
Oh my goodness.
I've been caught singing Lovely Day on one of our hockey broadcasts, trying to hold that note for the 17 seconds.
Were you successful?
Oh God. Well, I held a note. I don't know what kind of note it was, but man, the best notes I held were my questions. But for you, like "Lovely Day" is by far one of my favorite songs of all time, especially in that genre. What are some what songs do you go to?
For sure. I mean, you mentioned two great ones right off the bat. And the thing about Bill Withers is that he was so uh, his songwriting ability was so transcendent to a lot of things that were rivaling his at that time and even historically as we look back now. I mean, like he has songs, Ain't No Sunshine, he has Grandma's Hands, he has all of his hits, which have kind of become these almost standards. And standards sometimes we only see in very, very historically rich genres like jazz music, blues music, even like dance hall and stuff like that. Like for him to do that and still be at such a hail of pop stardom is really really cool, man. And he's got those hits like I mentioned. He's got some crazy deep cuts though. I think that's what people are sleeping on. If you go deep into a Bill Withers record, I mean, it's a roller coaster that you're not going to want to get off anytime soon. There's one record on his second album, Still Bill, has I Don't Know, and it's kind of like a laid back sort of thing. And those first couple records that he put out in the early '70s were really really popular, and there's a lot of great tracks there. But sort of find more home in his later stuff, which was kind of we were getting to the '80s, so we were just introducing disco into the pop radio scene, and he has one song called All Because of You. It's the first track on his album. What's that one called? Belt Love. And that's like I think that might be my favorite song of all time. So pour one up for my man Bill. He really has guided me through a lot of things musically, and I think even just personally. He was a character for sure.
I I don't know what it is right now, and whether it's just on my algorithm, but I am noticing a lot of synth and 80s synth coming into pop music around with this generation. You've got some synth. What is it that's drawing people back into that genre, into that style in this generation?
I think we see it everywhere. I think we see fashion go around in cycles. I think we see, if you want to even break into sports, we see players, for example, that will mimic older playing styles, and we've like, wow, we haven't seen a player like this since so and so, and you kind of measure it in these cycles, and I think music is even maybe the biggest snapshot of that. And when you're breaking it down like that, sometimes we see waves of stylistic movements, whether that be, like you mentioned, instrumentation or even just vocal styles and stuff like that. And I think we are seeing a lot of like 80s nostalgia go around right now. And I mean, I'm guilty for that as well. It's something that inspires me all the time. You have these old synths that people in the late '70s, even early '80s and stuff. Like the talk box, for example, when you have like people like Daft Punk who are pop legends at this point, mimicking some of these old 80s funk styles of instrumentation. I think maybe it's just the craving for doing something different. And I think we've reached a point where you can't write a new song. Like there's no way that you could do something that no one has ever done just with the oversaturation of the product. But by digging back and looking at what these people were doing before, analyzing them to be see why were they popular, why was this interesting at the time. I think maybe using some of these, like pulling just bits and pieces and being like, well, what can I do with this? I think that's maybe how we work in cycles. And so when people are struggling to find what the future is, I think dipping back into a chapter in the past is usually what people frequently do. And I mean, we are, like you said, seeing it right now, a lot of synth usage, a lot of drum machine usage, and a lot of just modes of songwriting are being taken from the 80s because it was such a lucrative decade in every facet of pop culture. And I think, yeah, you hit the nail on the head. I think it's just really people wanted to do something different. And I think the first thing that people will do is break it down and be like, what did people do back then? How can we recycle that and put it into pop radio now?
I'd like to dig into your past. When was it where you felt that where you were really found yourself drawn to music for the first time in creating and really having it be your life?
I think there was definitely a point of listening that came first where I think there's a certain point when you're a kid and you're kind of on autopilot and you're not really thinking critically about anything around you. You're falling down, you're eating crayon glue and all this sort of thing. You're just acting wacky. And when you sort of become cognizant of the world around you, I think it's a very eye-opening experience. And there's kind of like a moment that you can pinpoint. I think for music, it's the same thing. I remember, you know, I didn't really think about music too much. And then I remember, as I grew into kind of maybe 10, 11, 12-ish range, I remember going back and be like, and finding like Johnny Cash. I remember finding BB King. I remember finding the Temptations. But also at the same time, I was being put onto a wave of punk rock too. So like my mom was showing me the Ramones, my brother was showing me the Misfits and stuff like that. And so it was kind of all coming at me at once, and I was trying to slow it down and decipher each point. And I really liked the driving aspect of this punk rock tracks because they were so raw and they were so untouched and unproduced. It was awful. It sounded awful. It sounded horrible. But for some reason, it sounded so bad that people loved it because it was so intimate and so raw, and it felt like there's a live performance going on in this record. And that's why I think I was able to marry that point with soul music so well because it's the exact same philosophy. And so I kind of reached that realization in my early teens, and I was so infatuated with like the feeling, the experience of listening to music. And so I remember I grew up in a very small town for that set of years. Like we moved around a couple times, but for that specific portion, I was in a small town, Nova Scotia, and everyone around me was playing hockey, and I wanted to play hockey so bad, but we couldn't do it. We couldn't travel. We couldn't pay for it. But I remember I got a drum set secondhand, and my mom was like, "Here, stop asking me. Go get busy on the drums." And boy, did I get busy on the drums. I was hammering them out 24/7. I can't believe my mom still had the patience to deal with me at the end of the day. And I remembered how it just became my life. That was the feeling that I got from that was so unrivaled by any other sensation I'd felt to that point. And I remember it just opened up a can of worms. It was just like it was going into the closet of Narnia or whatever, however you want to put it. Is really, really a sensation that I didn't want to stop anytime soon. And that just evolved into, well, why don't I pick up the guitar? Why don't I pick up the bass, the keys? Why don't I start writing my own songs? And I think that maybe put me on the highway to Spirits and Ghosts, the new EP, the first EP. You know what I mean? It's been a long ride, but I think every piece of the puzzle stacked up to get to where I am now.
So now with the first EP and being in the local scene, you get nominated for Best of Halifax from the coast. How was that phone call coming in for you? That must have been nice found money.
You know, it was hilarious. I remember one of my friends, Ken McKay. great saxophone player. Actually plays saxophone on this record, and he texted me. He was like, I knew someone told me that I got nominated for best new artist in the Coast Best of Halifax Awards. And I was so hyped up. I was in the studio with my producer Archive. We were bouncing around, and then I remember I got a call from Ken McKay, and he was like, "Yeah, congrats on your 5 nominations." And I was like, "What on earth are you talking about?" And so I had to go do my homework, and they didn't tell me nothing. I found out with everyone else, and that was really a really cool experience.
So in this local scene, who have been some of the people that you've looked up to and have been kind of inspiring and giving you advice locally? I know we've talked about musically your influences, but around this scene, who's been people that have kind of guided you?
Man, linking up with the people at Youthful Music, the studio art recording has been really big. And like Braden Caramans, for example, is in a band called Sleepy Kicks. They're so talented. And I've been able to kind of get with those guys, and I've been able to see them live and stuff like that, and take some notes. People like Aquaculture has always been somebody I've looked up to in the city. I mean, he's a fantastic artist. He's so talented, and he puts the city on his back. You know what I mean? He wears it on his shoulder, and I think that's something that everyone can kind of aspire to look at. And the way he champions it is just phenomenal, and it's for all for good reason and backed up by so much talent. And there's just been so many people that have just reached out and sent messages to me and just kept me going. It doesn't need to be like, these people giving me a small loan of $1 million and taking me from point A to point B. So many people have just been so welcoming, reaching out a hand when I need one, sending me a message, telling me to keep going, giving me pointers, giving me inspiration. Because at the end of the day, even if they're not directly reaching out, they're not directly giving me a hand or anything, just them putting out their music, I'm able to bounce those ideas in my head and just gain inspiration from the city around me. Because, when you look at it, these are the sounds of the city, and I love the city of Halifax. And so, however, I'm able to kind of represent just a small part of that in my music, I mean, that is ultimately a goal that I'm trying to check off the box. And so, there's so many names. I don't even want to risk forgetting some people, but those specifically have been probably people at the top of the list. Even people that have left Nova Scotia, like they're in Toronto now. Loviette comes to mind. She's been fantastic, and just me listening, seeing what she's doing, and trying to follow in her footsteps. And I mean, she's reached out a couple times too, just to say that she likes the tracks and stuff. And I mean, that's crazy. That's fantastic. So
And now Nova Scotia Music Week's coming up in Yarmouth. I saw you're on the bill for that today. Where can where can we see you perform, and how excited are you to get out and be live performing with the album?
I am so stoked. It's gonna be crazy, man. I've been lucky to be blessed. Again, my producer Archive is also he's got a gifted set of fingers on the turntables, and so he's gonna be DJing at all these shows too, which gets me so excited. And we got a good on stage chemistry going, good energy. We have some shows coming up in New Brunswick through the fall. We're working on getting some outside of the Maritimes too, which is really exciting. And then that brings us to Music Week in November. We are playing on November 3rd in Yarmouth, Nova Scotia, at a place called Ramblers. Can't say I've been there, but we're gonna make ourselves known in a big way, pretty fast, and so that's gonna be exciting. I mean, I'm just so excited to bring these songs to a whole new environment, because in the studio and your headphones with these recordings that you can just milk and listen to on repeat, I mean, that's one part of it. But having these pieces of art be transformed into a whole nother setting and environment and a whole nother interpretation of these ideas, that's kind of what I'm most excited for, because I don't really want to stay too stagnant in terms of making it sound perfectly like the recording alive. I like when there's a little bit of messiness, a little bit of action. I like making it feel like it's a raw performance. You know what I mean? I don't want to just go up there and plug in my aux and play the song and just have everyone fawn over me. I want people to be in the experience, and I want everyone to share this feeling. So I think just having that reinterpretation of these ideas is just the most valuable thing about bringing it to a live stage.
Now, Joe, we're talking about performing. You came onto my radar. The music came onto my radar because your older brother, Charlie, is pro wrestler, the greatest of all time, Charlie Hubley. I'll say the
Come on.
self-proclaimed, but I love, you know what? I love what Charlie's doing. My question for you right now, before we get into that, is: do you have an impression of your brother cutting a promo?
You know what? You say he's self-proclaimed, but I don't even think I could do it justice at all. I think it would be laughable. Nobody can touch him. He's out there doing his thing, and man, I don't even know. I might grunt or something like that, but I might hurt my throat. I don't know. I'm not warmed up. I don't know if he's doing vocal warm-ups before, but man, he's screaming his heart out. I think he feeds off the energy. You know what I mean? But he is quite a character, and he's one dude that's just doing his thing. He's the greatest of all time. You know what I mean? You can't really get much better than that.
I love what's again what's going through your mind when you're watching him out in the ring?
It's somebody that's just at home with what they're doing. And I think that's kind of what we should all strive to be doing. This is someone who loves wrestling. Like I cannot put it more to a T. He loves because it's an art form. Whether people want to do whatever, taking a chair shot's an art form. I don't care what you got to say. And this is something that is so articulate, and or I guess I should say it's so intricate in the way that it's planned out and in the way they just go in there and beat each other up. I mean, it's beautiful. It really is poetry in motion. But him specifically is just somebody that cares so much and so deeply and again, so intricately about what he's doing. Everything is so calculated with him. And I get a lot of inspiration from that. Getting in the studio and doing my own thing. I try and tap into my passion the same way he taps into his, where again, I go back to it's a 24-hour job because even if you're not on hands on, rather practicing your craft, practicing your art, it's always a mental game. You're always thinking about two steps ahead. And I see someone who really cares deeply about his trajectory and cares deeply about his performance. And I mean, you see in the way he excels so deeply and resonates so deeply with the people that watch him. And that's definitely, I'm at the top of that list.
Well, I loved again. Him and Cole had a fantastic match last time I
Oh,
saw him
yeah.
out, and I know we'll be seeing more of them. So the question I have, we're talking future booking for Charlie. Let's talk future booking for you. We know where you're performing up to Yarmouth, but where do you see yourself? Where do you want to be in 3, 5 years?
On the top, baby. I got no plans on slowing down. We got the EP coming out. We got the shows rolling out as well. But just in a couple of years, why don't you poke your head out the window, step outside for a bit? I guarantee you the people will be talking. I got a lot of things coming down the pipe and a lot of tricks up my sleeve. And so I'm just excited to see where this wave takes me. I have no expectations and no guarantees because I even surprise myself sometimes. I'm just excited to see where it takes me. And I'm, again, just staying true to myself, staying true to the music, and always making sure I'm tapped into the people around me because it's easy to think that you're by yourself, but then you get some people around you that believe in your cause, and it makes all the difference. And so I'm staying connected, staying grounded, and just working on my craft. And I certainly think that I'm in tap and tuned into who I'm meant to be. And so I'm hoping if I just stay true to that, then the sky's the limit. And I feel like touching it sometime soon.
Man, at 19 and running the roads now, sky is the limit. Can't wait to see what's coming up next. Congrats on all the success. Again, Spirits and Ghosts on Spotify. And where else, man? Where else can we find Spirits and Ghosts?
You can find it on all streaming services, and you can go to my website, joehubley.com, Hubley, and I'm on social media as well. All the links are on that website. And if you even want to go support it firsthand, you can go to Bandcamp and stuff like that, and I get 100% of the revenue, and all of it's super appreciated. And also, I will say, check out Youthful Music, the whole camp, the whole studio. They got a lot of other great music coming from a lot of other great artists, and it's all people I really trust at the helm. Braden, and Colleen. They're three really great producers, great songwriters. So Youthful Music should be at the top of your list too.
Awesome, Joe. Thanks again, buddy. Enjoy. And yeah, voting closes on Friday, so everyone get out and vote. Best of Halifax, Joe Hubley. 5 times. 5 times.
Yes, please, 5 times.
Just like Booker T, if we're closing up
Five
professional
times.
wrestling. 5 times. 5 times. All right, Joe. Thanks, my friend.
Thank you, Mavs. I appreciate it very, very much.